Hey there, Balanced Lady Bosses. Welcome to another exciting conversation. I am really pumped up about this discussion in particular because it's one of those questions that has come up for many more persons than usual in the last 2 years. Since the pandemic, we have been experiencing droves and droves of women leaving their jobs or downshifting their positions, not just because of the stresses that the pandemic came with, but also just because they're just unhappy and maybe looking for alternate ways to express their greatness. I am no different in that I too have been exploring, especially over the last 4 months, the different ways that I could express my greatness with my career. As many of you know, I was on a sabbatical. My sabbatical is now over. And no, I can't believe it either that the time passed by so quickly. But yes, you heard me right. The sabbatical is now over, and it's time to get back to working in a new way for me. I have not yet arrived at the final decision of whether or not I'm going to leave my regular 9 to 5, sweet, sweet, lovely job and step into entrepreneurship full time and build a business or launch a huge company and, all the things, or if I'm going to maintain that executive role and seek out new and different ways to make an impact inside the organization that I work for. For some of you, you may not have the luxury to create a sabbatical experience, or possibly you don't want to take on that approach when thinking about whether or not you should leave your job. Now, let's top off all of the things happening with the pandemic with my latest obsession, which is Beyonce's new album, Renaissance. Okay, I don't know if you're not obsessing, guys. Then I don't know. I have to go check it. I have to go check it because I was not necessarily a beehiver. I like Beyonce, love her music, always bought every single album, watched the videos, etc. But let me tell you, this particular album, I'm gonna have to find me a space in the beehive because hands down, I just feel that intention of women's empowerment and just really standing in your power was fully the focus for this album. And literally, when you read the description of the album, it talks about the fact that that was the intention of it, and you can feel it in the different songs. One of the songs that caused great controversy when it launched, which was actually the debut song from the album, Break My Soul, was because in the song it has a line that says, release my job, release the job. And there were like newspaper articles, magazine articles, social media went crazy. Is Beyonce telling people to leave their jobs? It was just everywhere, right? And clearly, I don't think she's telling everybody to leave their jobs. Certainly not the woman that she's trying to empower. However, it did have you paying attention to what you're holding on to and just telling you to release it all, let it all go, so that you can step into your feel good space, which ultimately is what you do when you go to the club. So she wasn't telling people to quit their jobs, although many people somehow went off on that very far tangent, right? All right. So let's get back to the meat of the matter. We are here in this particular epic to talk about whether or not you should be releasing your job, okay? And there are lots of different articles about it now because so many people are releasing their jobs. Either they're going off to greener pastures and becoming entrepreneurs because it seems like it's so easy. Well, it ain't. But because of social media and the internet, so many people have actually left their jobs thinking that entrepreneurship was this walk in the park, breezy thing, or they've left their jobs because they're just stressed, fed up, etc., etc. So I wanted to share today the top 3 reasons and one bonus one. So you're going to get 4. The top 3 reasons that you should actually start seriously considering looking for employment elsewhere, looking for employment elsewhere, or possibly stepping into entrepreneurship if you have the capacity and the capability to do so. I'm not going to be the person to tell anybody to leave certain income to go out there and become an entrepreneur. I'm not doing that. No. Actually been there. Know what it's like. All right. So on to serious matters. Now, the first reason why you would want to start considering whether or not your place of employment, the work that you're currently doing is good for you, is still the place for you, is that you're not learning. Now, for many people, they take on jobs because they need the money to pay their bills. But then there are also some of us who get into a particular line of employment because it's satisfying something purposeful in our lives. Many of us may have landed dream jobs or even created our roles, like I did in my current C suite role. And eventually, you are looking at this role and wondering, is this still relevant to who I have become now that you've been doing it for a while? Now, when you're in a situation where you are letting go of something that you have now discovered purpose in, it is not an easy task to take on. It's actually kind of difficult. So don't beat yourself up too bad if you are actively thinking about the possibility of exploring other career options. There is a healthy way to do it without driving yourself crazy. And these top 3 reasons are going to help you with understanding the things you need to be looking at in a more strategic way before you just get up and walk off of the people and work, right? Okay. So, first and foremost, you're not learning. So, you're at work, you're working, you're doing your thing, but you're not learning. Second, you're not growing, right? Maybe it is that, you have climbed the ladder and now you're hitting up on the limit, the upper limit of the organization. There isn't any other role. Maybe you are already CEO, okay? Or maybe you don't want to be CEO, right? So there isn't growth available to you either in the role to ascend to a different role or just yourself expanding based on what you are doing on a day-to-day basis. And then the third item is you've already done what you came there to do. So for many high-performing executive women or many aspiring hypos who then ascend the corporate ladder, you came into an organization to create change. A lot of CEOs sometimes are hired for a specific outcome, to deliver a specific outcome. Right now, digital transformation is huge. Maybe you were hired to deliver digitizing a company, or maybe you were hired to reinvigorate the culture of an organization. Maybe you were hired to replenish the leadership team so you could have new leadership, right? So possibly it is that you came in and the intention that you came in to serve or the mission that you were on has now been achieved. So any of those 3 reasons, I always say, think about it through the lenses that make work the most meaningful. And for me, those 3 lenses make work meaningful for me. Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I on a really cool mission? So if you are in the space of looking at what learning means, what does it mean to be learning at work? Well, it doesn't just mean being offered opportunities for training, although that is a key aspect of it. Possibly if you are in a corporate environment that does not offer the opportunity for you to get training, and this can be whether it is you're going off to get another degree or certification, maybe a micro certification, or maybe you're going to events and conferences so that you continue to upskill yourself by networking with other like-minded individuals in the same industry. There really does need to be a learning component to your career if you are in the leadership space. If you're a woman in leadership, you should be continuously learning. That should actually be a value of yours. Continuous learning and development is a really key value for any leader, right? So this goes beyond just having a great library or a Harvard Business Review subscription, right? It actually now takes on being able to step into fully expanding your knowledge so that you can offer more to the organization that you're in and certainly be able to upskill yourself for possible future opportunities that may come along. If you're in a company that is not giving that to you, you may want to put a question mark beside whether or not it's important, whether or not you should be still sitting there inside of that organization. And when I say it's not giving it to you, meaning even if you don't know if it's available and you have asked, you have checked, you have gone to HR, or you've talked to your boss, you've actually brought opportunities for your own learning and development to the table. Not just because you don't see it happening and so you make an assumption that it's not available, right? That we're not dealing with the assumptions thing, okay? So if you have checked it out and you recognize that this organization does not offer me learning and development opportunities, then you may want to put a question mark beside whether or not you want to be there. Another form of learning that I think is important is whether or not you're actually learning from the work that you're doing. So for some individuals, especially when you're in the tech space, when you're in an environment that initially you go into change and maybe you've done your thing and you're looking for that iron sharpening iron kind of experience to learn from either your colleagues or from your boss or from the experiences that you're having around the work that you're doing, that should be enriching and allowing you to grow. And allowing you to grow both technically as well as in your leadership skill set. If that is not happening, then you definitely want to put a question mark beside whether or not you should still be sitting in that company. So that's learning, right? So are you learning? Do you have access to the opportunities for learning, more traditional learning methods, whether it is that you are going to school or getting degrees, certifications, conferences, etc.? Or are you learning from the work that you're doing because you are sharpening your iron against other iron that you're encountering, whether it's technically or it's professionally, right? So learning is one. The next one is growing. Am I growing? Am I actually doing things that are expanding me as a leader, expanding me as a woman, expanding me as a team player? And you'll know that you are growing because you will see yourself doing and saying things differently from how you were doing and saying them when you arrived. Maybe it's the way that you're presenting that gets enhanced, the way how you are integrating with a team. Maybe you have achieved opportunities outside of work because of your work on a board or serving in a high profile association, right? So there are multiple different ways that you can tell if there is growth. Right, your mind is continuously challenged and you can see that the way that you are thinking about things is also expansive, right? You are expanding as an individual because of the work that you have been doing here. If that was happening and then it's kind of gotten stagnant, then you want to put a question mark there. A lot of question marking happening, right? So if maybe when you came into the organization initially, you were feeling that sense of growth, it was new, it was fresh, you were definitely seeing where you were having to level up in how you're using your language. You had to level up your emails, you had to level up the presentations, you had to level up the documents that you were creating, you even had to level up your team, like just the growth mindset in general, all the different aspects of yourself as a leader, your time management, your self-care. All of those different things had to get taken to another level. You have grown in the way that you're able to get performance out of your team members. Yes, all of those different elements serve and support your growth as a leader and ultimately serve and support your growth as a woman who is in the leadership space. If you're not feeling like those things are happening, then you definitely want to put the question mark. Growth can also be measured in terms of ascension. So possibly you were in a small company, or maybe you were hired into a C-suite role or an executive role that then moved you into the C-suite, and you have capped the limits of the organization. So there isn't room for further growth on the career ladder. It's a different type of growth, but same type of growth, right? Or there isn't room for you to create another role that you can grow into. Then you want to put a question mark beside whether or not this is an organization that you want to continue to sit in. All right? So that's growth, which was the second place, whether you are growing as an individual or as a leader, or you are ascending to different levels in the organization if that ascension is available to you. Oh, I forgot to mention, there may be instances where the ascension is not available, meaning not that it's not available, it's available, but you're actually not growing, even though you're performing at levels where you feel like, okay, I should be moving up. You're checking off all the boxes. You're submitting for the promotion when the opportunities arise. but you're not getting selected. It may be a time for you to put a question mark beside whether or not this company actually values you enough. So that's another part of growth. I didn't want to miss mentioning that. Okay, now the third area is that you've done what you came here to do. So this particular item for me is one that is probably hitting closest to home because I'm a very intentional employee. And what I mean by that is just about every job I've had since I've known myself. So maybe in my 30s and certainly in my 40s, every job that I've taken on, it's been because I have seen where a company has problems and I'm designing a way to actually solve those problems. So I may be creating a role for myself. There may not even be a title that exists, but I'm creating a role that I can now step into, and I'm creating an intention or a mission that I could fulfill. Before I continue on that path, guys, I just want to say I have to thank our sponsors, Epic Intention Cards. And of course, they are our premier sponsor that we want to say thank you to because they help us with setting these very intentions. So I have a deck of intention cards with me, as I always do, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull an intention card before I finish talking about this particular point. Because for many of us, we are still learning that we can be intentional about all aspects of our life, even the goals and the changes and the impact that you want to make at work. So let's choose a card from this deck. Let's see what comes up today. Oh, this one is really good for this conversation. The card that I've pulled today from the Epic Intentions deck says, I embody boldness. Oh, it's so good. The picture that's on the card is one of a wolf howling against what looks like a blood red moon. Really beautiful. And the affirmation at the bottom of the card says, I take purpose-filled action towards the things that are in my best interest and the best interest of others, even when it may not be easy to do so. Even when may not be easy to do so. That's really good. And you have to actually be intentional about getting up and leaving your job. I know for women, this is something, for many women, not all, this is something that weighs on you very heavily when you're getting ready to depart, especially if you're working in a company that has shown you that they value your work and you've built solid relationships with, right? But you will need to embody boldness if you're going to be making that shift. And so I encourage you to support our sponsors by getting your own deck of Epic Intention cards. There is a link in the show notes to get the deck, and you can also visit epicintentioncards.com, and they're available for you on Amazon. So thanks so much, Epic Intention Cards. We're going to continue on now. So you've done what you've come to do. So you took on this job, you set an intention, you got on this grand mission, you laid it out, and now that mission has been achieved. It may just be time. For some of us, we oftentimes think that it has to be a negative situation in order for you to move on from the work that you are doing. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you are brought in to achieve a big goal, to make a significant shift, to create a particular type of impact. And if that is the case and you've come in and you've done that, maybe you've surpassed your expectations, maybe you've surpassed everybody else's expectations, and you are not seeing a new mission emerging. You've sat and you've analyzed and you've assessed and you're looking for potential problems to solve, but the ones that you're finding are not really going to challenge you and allow you to learn or to grow. The mission is complete. When that starts to happen, when the mission gets complete, it may be time for you to put a question mark beside whether or not you want to continue working in that organization. And you know what, guys? It's not something to feel bad about. It's actually something to be proud of, because you can use the very completion of that mission as a way to show yourself as powerful and being able to stand in your presence when going after that next big thing. You can use the different success points of the mission that you achieved to help to encourage you and to motivate you as you move towards this new big great thing, this new dream or this vision that you have for your career. Even if it is that you decide that you're going to step out of corporate and into entrepreneurship. Had to throw that one in there. Now, I have a fourth and bonus reason why you may want to examine when you're thinking about whether or not you should leave your work, leave your corporate space, release your job, right? And that reason is because your environment is unhealthy. Okay. Now, when you think environment is unhealthy, you may be thinking, maybe you're working in a toxic plant with chemicals and all of that. But it's beyond that. We're talking about work environments that do not promote or support the wellness, well-being, diversity, equity, and inclusion of women in leadership. You got that? So it doesn't support your wellness or well-being, and it does not support you being empowered to do your best and to grow inside of an organization in which you work. So just because they pay you good, if you're highly stressed and you're experiencing unconscious bias from your male counterparts, microaggressions from team members as well as other females, then now is the time to consider looking for other opportunities. A lot of times we get so attached to the work environments that we're in that we forget that there are lots of jobs available out there. Because of the grand resignation, there are also a lot of open positions. Don't you ever make the mistake of thinking that there isn't a job out there for you. Whatever it is that you desire in your mind, you can create. Remember that transformation is created twice. So if it is a new job that you want, it is a new job that you can get. You can create it. And so I welcome you, especially if you are in an unhealthy environment and you have examined these three areas. I'm not learning, I'm not growing, and I've done what I came here to do. It may be a good time to start exploring what other big dream opportunities can you create for yourself as an amazing, balanced lady boss. Thanks so much for joining and listening to this epic, guys. I really enjoyed sharing my little tidbits with you. And I hope to see you on another epic of the Balanced Lady Boss Show. Take care, guys.